Hi, good evening. Welcome to Live with Dawn Butler. And joining me on the sofa today, we have Rashid Aden Jama, Director of Horn of Africa Youth Association. And we'll be talking about the situation in Kenya and how they are saying that any Somali refugees are basically going to be exiled and will have to stay in 2 camps. So if you've got anything to say on that issue, then do please tweet in at Star Media Corp, at Dawn Butler Brent, hashtag live with Dawn Butler. If you're at Facebook, Star Media Corporation, YouTube, Star Media Corp, and if you want to call live into the studio, it's 0203 397 2095. So good evening, Rashid. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to your program.
So you've been to the refugee camp in Dadaab, and how have you found it? And what do you think about the latest from the Kenyan authorities that have said that Somalis will no longer be welcomed, if you like, in Kenya? They have to stay in these 2 camps.
Well, honestly, I've been to Kenya in 2012, and I went to Dadaab, the refugee camps. If you look at the background of these camps, it's very bad, and if you look at how many people live in those camps, 500,000 people.
So there's 500,000 people in the camps themselves already.
Already, and those
half a million.
Half a million, and they fled from civil war. You know, they need a peace. They need somewhere to live. They need to start. They're looking for new life, and most of people are there. The children and women. And they really need, support. They need a help from international community. They don't need to be pressurized from, you cannot go here, you cannot cross this to the city, you cannot go. They're already suffering a lot because there's a lot of things going on these refugee camps. The food, there's no proper food, there is no proper medication. People die and every day. Children, they have not, proper medication. There is no, the security is very bad. They don't have a proper security. They don't have, the international community. There's the UN trying to, give them food, but there's half a million people living there. You can imagine, it's really bad. And they cross there when they want something. They cross there, they go to the big cities. They try to get some medicine. They try to get something,
How are they treated when they go to the big cities? Well,
they're treated very bad because even if you look at the Isli itself in Nairobi, the Somali community are based on Isli, majority of them. And when you go there, you can see the conditions are very bad in Isli. And when these people come to they don't speak the language. You can straight away you can tell they are the refugees, and they treat them very bad. So this new case just came up from the Kenyan government. It's not helping these refugees, it's not helping these people. These people need a life, they need somewhere to live, they need to be treated, and the international community need to treat them better, because from past year and so on, or 2 years, all you hear from the news is these people need to go back to Mogadishu, they need to go back where they came from. There's no safety in Mogadishu, if I mean, when you look at the news, there's always bombs going on in Mogadishu, they are fighting with Al-Shabaab, there's a lot of things going on in the south, or the Somalia, so this is not.
It's the life in the refugee camp, because if I quote Mr. Olilenku, said refugee registration centres in Kenya's main cities would be closed now. And he says any refugee found flouting this directive will be dealt in accordance with the law. Now, what sort of life is that? Is that a better life than what they're fleeing?
Well, honestly, I'm shocked when I hear that news, because Kenyan government have 4 million Somalis in Kenyan government. I mean, Somali origins.
Right.
So half of the countries, you will say, I would say quarter is a Somali. The government have their.
So they're already integrated in the community. Half of Kenya is Somali anyway.
Yeah.
So you're saying that Kenya can afford to integrate 500,000 refugees into the main cities?
They don't have to. They don't have to really. This 500,000, if they give them freedom, if they give them citizenship, if they give them education, because the international government, the UN, are willing to support. They're willing to help these people. But the Kenyan government, they are treating them outside, because, for example, the family came in 5 years ago, and the children already born in there. They have a rights to to be a citizenship in the country. They have the right is to be
Oh,
treated.
so if a child's born
Yeah.
in Kenya, they have a
You know,
right to citizenship.
Of course, yeah. And there's a large Somali community, and the Kenyan government, they cannot really treat these people like this because they need help. They need to survive.
I mean, we have asked a representative from the Kenya government to come on. Unfortunately, we haven't got anybody today. But what they're saying is that there's emergency security challenges facing Kenya at the moment, and to protect themselves as a country, they're now saying, right, okay, if you come over from Somalia, these are the 2 camps, you can go there but no further. And they're saying they're doing that to protect their own country. Is that wrong?
Well, I mean, how could they protect when there are 4 million Somalis already in Kenya? This is not, it's not, you really, people are coming and fled from civil war, and they need somewhere peacefully, they're coming, otherwise they will not come. If you look at the 1980s or 70s, 60s, no one wants to go to Kenya.
Yeah.
All these people have a life, they have education, they have, no one wants to go anywhere. When the civil war happened in, the Somaliland, the Ethiopian government, they never treat the refugees like this. They treat them, they give them places to live, they give them, they treat them well.
Yeah.
And people will come back at the end of the day when the country is peace and when the country is better. They will come back to their homes and to their families.
Yeah. Do you think that this diktat, if you like, from Kenya, do you think this would make people more angry?
Of course, because the
But
more
do you think this would, if you like, increase the threat in Kenya?
Well, I believe so, because if you look at, as I said, there's a large number of Somali community, and when you see all this from the news, it's really upsetting people. It making people angry. I was watching the news one time, and the mosques, they've been closing mosques in some cities, Mombasa and all this. If you treat people like this, people will be upset, and you'll have more, people will be angry, and you'll have people have do anything to be seen or to be heard, and to have a voice, because this refugee people, Somali people in the refugee camps, if the Kenyan government, they put them pressure like this, they might just go to, they're going to hate the country, they're going to hate the government, and they don't have no money, they have no food. What else would they do? They have to be, rob people or mug people, or be angry for the government and fight.
So you think it'll be a desperate?
Yeah, they'll be very
situation,
desperate.
a desperate state.
Yeah.
So tell me, when you went to the refugee camps, just describe for the viewers what it was like. So what happened when you turned up? What did it feel like? What did it smell like? What did it look like?
When I went there, I've seen families who are so desperate, children with no schools. I've seen families who have little to live, have less food, and the security. I've seen a lot of people who have worried about the security because there's no security inside the camps. I've seen a lot of women who are suffering. I've seen children who you think they have, never went to, they don't have a school, they don't have a life, and they cannot go, to the main cities. They cannot go back to their countries.
Why do they need security in the camps?
Well, because there's, 500,000 people there, and most people are coming from, crossing the border, the young people there, the men there, you need to have a security, you need to have a police, some guards, you need to have a security, there was
are women raped there?
Yeah, there's a women rape, and there's a lot of things. If you go to those camps, you see people are so desperate and they need a lot of help, and there's and
did you feel scared and threatened?
Not really, no, because I went with my friend. I went to first time when I went to Nairobi, then it was not my plan to go to the refugee camp, but my friend took me there, and he was, he's running an NGO in Nairobi. So he said, I'm going there, would you like to come with me? I went there, and it was really shocked where I see. But there's a lot of people trying to help. There's NGOs, there's UN agencies who are trying to supply food and so on, and clothes and tents where they can sleep. But the population, and you can see they suffer a lot, crossing the border, and some people,
So it sounds very lawless.
Yeah.
There's no laws. There's 500,000 people in one confined space, and there's no laws.
There's no laws. There's no. Basically, the Kenyan government need to help these people, providing more, more investment for schools, for accommodations, and is a lot of people, but they should have international community supposed to help more, but they're not getting enough.
So, Rashid, this is a difficult question, I think, but if there's 500,000 people in a confined, lawless space, is that a better condition than Somalia, the country that they've left?
Yes, it is, because when people die in Somalia, people die in there because of the fighting.
And they're still fighting in Mogadishu?
Mogadishu is better than as it was before, but then still people have no jobs, people have still scared, there's still bombs going on, and the government is not controlling a lot, most of the city, it's all people is very scared on, going back. Even the people who went back, and they need more help, they need accommodation, they need more food, they need more support in Mogadishu itself. And people are really not feel safe still in Mogadishu, and they don't feel stable, and it will.
So they feel less safe in Mogadishu than they do in a 500,000 populated lawless camp.
Yeah. They will live in here, but when if they go back, they're not. The reason they fled, it was the fighting. Otherwise they would not fled. Everybody had, if you look at the history of Somalia, everybody had a good income. They have best lives. They have businesses.
Very entrepreneurial.
Yeah, they were very creative, and they would never go anywhere else. Even when the civil war happened. If I talk about myself, I was from Somaliland, and then before the civil war, we want to come to abroad, but my family, my dad, he says, no, you're not going to abroad. Why do you need to go?
Because you can stay.
Yeah, you can stay, because the people feel proud to stay in the country. Yeah.
We've got a caller on the line. Let's take the caller. Good evening. Welcome to the show. Good evening. We may have lost the caller. I'm sure they'll call back.
Yeah.
So your father didn't want you to leave Somalia?
Yeah, because when I left, it was stable, and people were proud to stay in the country. They don't want fathers and all that. They don't want to send their kids to on abroad. They don't want to go to the neighboring countries. But
how can we make Somalia back to that position again? I mean, we were hoping that we've seen the end of the 2 decades of civil war in Somalia, and trying to build the country back up. How do we ensure that happens, so that instead of Kenya saying, we're not letting any more Somalis, over the borders, Somalis are able to go back home? How can we do that?
It's a good question. Somalia has been for 22 years. It's been had no government, and every government comes in is always they go before they do anything, and it's Somalia is being divided now. It's really have a different. If you look at Somalia itself, politically, it's been divided into different regions. Yeah, I'm talking about Mogadishu. I'm talking about Jubaland. I'm talking about all that the Somalia. So it is very difficult. It's going to be very difficult in the long term to put to make Somalia as it used to be.
We can't give up though. Let's see if we've got our caller back. Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi, good evening. We can hear you now. Welcome to the show. Did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question. Well, I have a comment, really, not a question.
Oh, it's okay. Go ahead.
I think, well, it's like any other country. When you feel under threat, you you have to react in some way. So I think the Kenyans have a right to react in some way, but I think it's just it's a bit too much to say, all you refugees, you must be restricted to the camps when they've been here for a very, very, very long time.
So you feel
it's a
that
little bit harsh.
So you feel that the Kenya government's being a bit harsh with their decisions. So what would
Absolutely.
what would you say is the solution or the way forward?
I mean, I think one has to differentiate those who are committing crimes, or in this case, bombing innocent people, with those who are actually innocent and just trying to make a living, within the cities.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a balanced, reaction to this, rather than one of collective punishment.
Yes. Very, very good point. Thank you. I didn't get your name. What was your name?
Abdul Rahman.
Abdul Rahman. Very good point. Thank you very much for calling in today.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, I was. So
there should be a balance.
Yeah, because let's say, for example, you got a guest in your house, and someone who say, I need a safety, and they come to your house, and then you lock them in a room, and you say you have to stay in that room. You can't get out in that room. It's a prison. You have to give them a freedom. This is a refugee. There's international law that
That's
you have
right.
to,
I mean, Kenya has signed international conventions to allow freedom of movement. So I think in 2012, when they first tried to do this, it was thrown out of court, and they were not allowed to do it because of the international convention. So I think the only thing that they can say now is that there's exceptional circumstances because of the crime and the bombings and the suicide bombings, etc. But as we've heard from Mr. Abdul, he's saying, well, it should be more measured, possibly.
Exactly, yeah. It's definitely need to be measured, and I definitely need to have people need to show their anger, and this is happening because you cannot treat people. I mean, people live in the city; they got everything. If I got money, I'll just go to the city and rent.
So even as a refugee, you're saying the refugees with money go straight into the city.
Yeah, they go to straight to the cities. People who in the camps are people who got nothing.
Yeah.
And how can you say you put them in a prison? You might just put in a put them in a prison and say lock them up. Then still say you cannot get out of the camps.
Let's take another call. Good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi. Good evening.
Hi. I just want to have a quick comment. I think Kenya's been waiting for the right time for this for a long time. I think for a long time they just wanted a reason to mistreat Somalis.
Right. Why do you think that is?
Because part of Kenya is already Somalia. And it's officially Kenya, and this speaks only because the British gave it to Kenya, and most of those Somalis live there now. And most Somalis would like it back, and Kenya wouldn't like that.
So you feel that the Somalis want Kenya back, and this is Kenya trying to ensure it doesn't happen?
Yes, whether it's today or in 20 years' time,
right?
Every Somali would want it back,
right?
And the Kenyans know that because they know that they've got this land wrongfully,
right? Interesting.
And they would do whatever it takes to sort of manipulate the truth and everything else, whether it's mistreating the refugees or invading Somalia.
Yes, that's an interesting point of view. Can I just ask one more question to you? So do you not think that by the Kenyans making this declaration in regards to Somali refugees, I mean, it sparked riots and unrest in 2012, do you not think it will spark more unrest and would make, if that was the case, it would make Somalis more determined?
Yes, I mean, Somalis don't really have a choice in some ways. Unfortunately, there is nothing to go back to. So if it's the case of the refugee camps, or staying in the cities, no matter what, I think even I would choose staying in the city, no matter what.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your call today. What was your name, sorry? Oh, it's gone. So another interesting theory on as to why Kenya is doing this, because I say they tried it in 2012. There was unrest, there were riots, then it was thrown out, so they weren't allowed to do it, and now they're trying to do it again. What do you think about that theory?
Well, the Kenya government somehow always have a problem with the Somali community.
But half of Kenya is Somali.
Yeah, still they had a problem because it's still, I mean, there's a lot of people who are Somali Kenyans who have not, passports, or who have not been, because I remember one time I read on the news, Kenyan government said we don't know, we cannot differentiate the Somalis who born here or Somalis who born in Somalia, and we cannot, they don't have a system basically to show that Somalis who's born in Kenya and Somalia, and it's been refused. A lot of people did not get passports on visas,
So instead of issuing them all with passports, they didn't issue any. It's interesting.
So it's been something, it's been ongoing for a long time, and I think that's why it's getting, in terms of Somali Kenyans, it seems like it's getting better because the foreign minister is a Somali lady. There's some people in the government, which is the Kenya showing that we bring Somali,
Okay, so they're trying,
but there's a lot of people who have still going through those issues.
Now the UN has urged Kenya to rethink their decision to not allow Somalis in the city, just in the camps. Kenya has, up until recently, been a generous host, if you like, to Somalia. What's the future? How would you like to see it happen?
Well, honestly, the way I see it is Kenya is pushing the UN to get more money, because if these people in the refugee camps are like guinea pigs, basically, the people are pushing around, push them in here, and what Kenya government is doing, they get millions of dollars to help these people, and what reaches them is a little bit. When they get like 50 million to help these people, they only like 10 million or 20 million reaches them, and all the money goes here and there with security, with the government and all that. So what Kenya government is doing, every time they're just bringing a new law, every time they're gonna, because they know that the UN or international community will give more money the more they abuse these people. So this is kind of I don't think the 500,000 people, you cannot keep them in the camps, you cannot keep them in a cage. Basically they want more money. They say we have security, we're gonna open this, so it's really something that people need to stand up and people need to talk about it. You see, the Somali community in Kenya, the Somali community in Mogadishu, in the diaspora, need to talk about this. I need to have put a pressure on Kenyan government and Kenyan embassies to to stop this, to abusing these refugees who need support and who need a peaceful life. So people should not be quiet about it. And if the Kenya is breaking the law, international law, refugees, because people are in their countries and people need the government protection. The government should not really treat them like they're nothing. These kids who are born now in these camps, they will they would live in Kenya. I mean, who knows? They might be
Because they may consider themselves to be Kenyan.
yeah, yeah, and they should not treat that because the Kenya gets a lot of money in terms of most of the Somali. Kenya takes a lot of money from the UN, and you know these people. The reason these people are going there, they need safety.
So would you
protection.
like to see discussion here in the UK between either Kenyan government or an authoritative figure from the Kenyan embassy, say, and the Somalis, or would you like to see it just from the people on the ground? Where would you like to see the discussion?
Well, discussion should people diaspora. I mean, in here should really approach the UN offices. They should approach the Kenyan embassy, and you know should be again impose this idea and this law. Kenya bring it to these people because you know these people they don't have a TVs, they don't have a they don't have a radios, they don't have their voice. They cannot their voice cannot be heard out in the world. So there's the Somali embassy here. There's a Somali government representative in Nairobi or in Kenya. People should not really ignore such a things because these people are already suffering a lot, and the international law. It says the refugees need to be protected and give them a humanitarian, protection. And you
don't feel that is currently happening?
No, it's not happening because every time you hear, I mean, I've seen on the news where the Somali government and Kenya signing something and they say all the refugees have to go back. You cannot do that.
Because if they can't untangle who was born in Kenya or should have a Kenyan passport or not, how would they send everyone back? Would it just be what they look like?
Yeah, I mean, how could you differentiate the Somali who born in Kenya and who born in the refugee camps? Is really difficult. And this is really something that people already are dying in these camps with no medication. There's no schools, and the Kenyan government should help them more than for example, when the civil war happened in Somalia, where people fled from Somaliland but and gone to Ethiopia, they had more, their schooling, they had more, better treatment. They never been pushed out to go back to where
they've just been left in these camps.
Yeah, and they all came back. Most of them came back to to the capital, Hargeisa, and they come back to.
So, do you think that two things should happen? That you should try and obviously improve the situation in the camps, improve the conditions and how they're living, ensure that the money that the UN is sending is invested in the camps, but also to improve Somalia and try and make Somalia safe so that people can move back. But before you answer, we have got a caller on the line. Let me go to the caller. Good evening, caller. Welcome to the show. Hi, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi, my name is Haza. I'm calling from London.
Hi, Sada. Welcome.
I just want to say my own opinion towards Kenya returning Somali refugees back to Somalia.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. I don't think it's the right thing because if an African country cannot look after refugees from other African countries, then who else will look after it? Kenya shares the borderline with Somalia. It's like one of the countries that Somalis can run to in terms of the war and things that are going on inside Somalia at the moment. So if Kenya doesn't welcome refugees that are coming from African countries, if we don't support each other with that, which other countries are we, if we don't look after our own brothers and sisters, who's going to look after them? So in my opinion towards that, I think it would have been better to look after them, for them to be, feel that they're home, being in Kenya, and I hope everything is going to be sorted out in Somalia so that they can go back. But I don't think they should be, sent back when that the government knows that they're not going to be safe going back there.
Great, great contribution. Thank you. And if there was a meeting that was held in the UK somewhere, would you attend the meeting? And would you, as Rashid was saying, would you be willing to do that?
Yeah, of course. Why not? If I'm invited, yeah.
Great, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your contribution today.
It's all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
I mean,
so a very powerful point made by somebody that sounds, you know, as a new sort of generation who's saying, if Kenya doesn't look after its brothers and sisters that shares a border, who would? I mean, that must fill you with some hope that you have, you know, people like that will say, right, okay, I'm willing to come out and help and fight. We've got another, I'm going to try and get as many calls as I can before the end of the show. Let me just take this other call. Good evening, welcome to the show.
Hello, good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Yeah, I think these people, you are wrong to call these people refugees. These people, they live in land that belongs to Somalia, and the land they live in belongs to Somalia. So you don't need to call a refugee. They are not refugees, these people. They live in them land. Geographically, it's Kenyan, but that land belongs to Somalia. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So, I mean, that point was kind of raised a little bit earlier as well, in that, you know, basically saying Kenya belongs to Somalia, and so we shouldn't be referring to them as refugees.
Yeah, I mean, I think what he was referring to is half of Kenya is called NFD, where it was Somalia before the British colony, and you know it's part of Kenya now. You know, most of the Somali where these people live in the camps it was a Somali land, Somali country before. So that's what he was saying. I think he was referring to where these people are now is the land, is the country. Right. It's not Kenya, you know. So stop calling them refugee, because they're not refugee. They kind of just came to the, you know, where they basically live in the land. So
that would be the argument that you would then have to have with the UN, in terms of, because you're almost saying that you're reclaiming that land. So you then have to have that argument and debate with the UN, which would be quite interesting actually, because it would mean that, well, it would mean, I suppose, that the Kenyan government wouldn't be able to claim any money for refugees, because you're saying that you're reclaiming the land. So that'd be quite an interesting debate. I think that's probably one for another show, because we haven't got time now for the show. But Rashid, if anybody wanted to contact you, how can they contact you and the Horn of Africa Youth Association? How can they
our community is not really involved in politics. You know, we are NGO, we are a community based on the UK. You know, our aims and objectives are to support people in the UK. You know, we're not concentration. We're not in, you know, concentrating Kenya. You know, we have office in. We try to open in Nairobi and also in Somaliland. So our aim is humanitarian, really, to help more in the long term, to help people in the camps and provide them education, work with other NGOs in Somaliland and in Kenya and in Somalia. And you know, in here, if people want to contact us or want to come to our office, if they have issues within, you know, within UK, they can contact us in our office or our website. But unfortunately, we won't be able to help anybody with the Kenya and Somalia issues or abroad. You know, so they can contact the other specialists.
Well, thank you very much for coming in to the show today and for discussing this really important development, one of which I hope will not take 2 decades to resolve. But thank you very much.
But thank you very much. Thank you for your time and inviting me to this program. It's very interesting to be part of it. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. So thank you to everyone that called in to the show. Sorry if we weren't able to take your calls today, but we'll see you again next week. Keep it locked in, and don't forget to watch it online, and we will see you next week. Good night.